Bhargav, and we're going to talk to you about what we can expect. The budget is going to be announced in a little less than an hour from now, and there's a lot of expectation because now the important thing is that it's an interim budget. It's not a full union budget. Now, what an interim budget means is that it's budgeting only for a few months. It needs to give the government enough money to spend until the elections happen, a new government is formed, and the new government then announces its new budget. So now the thing is that there are two aspects to this. One is that it's an interim budget, it's just for a few months, so we shouldn't expect any big announcements because it's only for a short period of time. But on the flip side, it's coming right before elections. And so people expect big, like populist measures. So that's the question. Is Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, is she going to do a populist budget or is it going to be a prudent budget? That's the main issue at hand. What she has to play with are subsidies, taxes. There are a number of things that she can do. She can increase allocations for things like PM Kisan. There are various ways that she can make it populist, but there are also various ways that she can be prudent while also helping growth. Now, of course, we aren't mind readers. We don't know what she's going to do. But over the last week or 10 days, Yutika and I have been speaking to a bunch of economists, a bunch of experts who have also been consulted by the government about, what needs to be done. And so they have told us, one, what they've recommended to the government, and two, what they also personally think should happen. So now, Yutika, you most recently had a conversation, ThePrint Charcha, where you spoke to several economists about what needs to be done. What are they saying? Is there likely to be like a big picture announcement, or are they going to be sector specific?
So everybody is in sort of a confusion what will happen. Nobody knows
Of course.
actually.
Yeah.
But economists have pointed out that it is very critical that there is a balance, that a balance is struck between economic growth and fiscal consolidation for
Right.
one. And second is more than, other than this, there would be sector specific announcement that they are looking at.
Right.
Because they say that 4 months is too long a time. There are sectors under stress, especially exports oriented sectors. So 4 months is too long a time to wait to help these sectors. So
I guess the exporters right now are hurting because of what's happening at the Red Sea and everything.
Exactly.
And we can't wait 4 months to help them out because by that time a lot of damage would happen.
So a lot of sector specific. We could see some action in PLI, especially sectors such as toys, and which are very labor intensive sectors.
Right.
So a lot of action could be seen in PLIs as well.
Okay. And so now if we were to look at the previous interim budget presented by Piyush Goyal in 2019, if that were to be our format, our example, then we can actually expect some big announcements because back then he announced PM Kisan, which was the transfers program for farmers. He announced the PM Shram Jyoti Mandhan, which was an insurance scheme for unorganized sector workers. And he made changes to the exemption limits in income tax, and he increased the standard deduction limit. So these are all big changes. These were all very popular at the time. Now, the finance minister has recently at a CII conference, she said that we shouldn't expect any spectacular announcements. But who knows? I mean, the elections are near and this government is in election mode. So, I mean, anything really could happen. Do you have any indication about what they might do on subsidies?
So no indication, but the industry has recommended that fertilizers and food, they form 90% of our subsidy bill. So CII has in fact recommended to the government that this be brought down gradually. This can do, although they have sort of said that deserving beneficiaries should get this.
Of course.
There should be better efficiencies that should be brought in to do this, but they have very strongly recommended that this needs to be brought down.
Yeah, and that actually to me doesn't seem like a very tough decision because fertilizer prices are falling So the quantum of fertilizer subsidy in the upcoming budget is likely to be lower than what it was in last year's budget. The free food program, that announcement has already been made. The Prime Minister, in fact, announced during the Chhattisgarh, like run up to the Chhattisgarh elections, that the free food program would be extended for 5 years. So that again is not a budget announcement, and the amount is going to be broken up over 5 years. So again, the per year increase is not going to be huge. Fuel subsidies, now that is something that might continue to hurt, because now, because of the Red Sea and the ongoing Russia Ukraine war, and now what's happening in with Israel and Hamas, all of that could affect oil prices, push them up. So fuel subsidies might increase, but overall the subsidy expenditure is unlikely to go up by a very large amount. Instead, what they will do is they will focus on things like PM Kisan, where right now farmers are getting 6,000 rupees. This might be, a lot of experts are saying that this could be increased to 8,000, 9,000 rupees. And also MG Narega, the jobs program is going to get a big push, because even last year the amount that they budgeted fell short, and so in the supplementary demand for grants they had to increase the allocation for this because the demand for work was more. And right now the rural economy, rural demand is not doing that well. So these two steps will also go a long way in boosting economic growth. Am I right? Is that?
Yeah, actually, one more point that CII has said is that if this subsidy bill is reduced, government can in fact increase capex more. So
Right.
economists are saying that the capex will increase in the range of 7% to 10%.
Right.
But CII has said that if subsidy bill goes down, then this money can be used to increase capex
Right.
up to 20%, which will give everything a huge
A big push. And now this push also, a push in capital expenditure is becoming increasingly important. I mean, the government has been doing it up till now, sure, but it needs to do it even more, because other engines of the economy aren't firing as well. Private investment is happening, but it's not happening at the pace that our economy requires. Private consumption, that is consumption by you and I, that's not happening. It's starting to slump. FMCG companies are seeing their revenue growth kind of flat, like 2 to 3% growth. Even the IIP is showing that consumer goods, their production is either contracting or the growth is slowing, which means that there's not enough demand in the economy for these kinds of goods. So that's private investment, private consumption, and of course, because of what's happening in the world, our exports are not doing too well. They're contracting. The world economy is slowing down, so our exports are also slowing down. So that's three engines of the economy that are not doing well. So that puts a lot of strain on the government. It puts a lot of pressure. They need to keep spending, keep generating jobs, generating work, generating activity in the economy. So as Yutika said, I mean, capex is important, and if they can reduce the subsidy bill and instead put that money in capex, that's absolutely great for the economy, because subsidies generally, they are not growth generating expenditure, but capex really is. It has a multiplier effect in terms of employment and in terms of all the ancillary industries. But now, so that's subsidies, that's capital expenditure. On taxes, what do you think is going to happen?
So taxes is the highly expected thing. Everybody
Right,
wants,
of course.
income tax, to pay less income tax. But like you said, consumption is slow.
Yeah.
Consumption growth is slow, and we have seen that prices have been soaring. So that gives a lot of expectations that yes, to help consumption demand and to keep pace with inflation, we may see some action on the tax front as well. But on the other hand, our tax to GDP ratio is low, and we have very
Right.
less people in the tax net. So either
Yeah.
ways, anything can happen.
So The tax net, in fact, the recently data came out that actually the highest number of people are now paying
Yeah.
taxes in the last, say, 15, 20 years, which is a great thing. I mean, it's still a small number and we need many more people to pay taxes. But one argument is that the way to encourage people to pay taxes is to lower tax rates, because it's high tax rates that people are trying to avoid. But if you lower the tax rates, then people find out that, maybe it's actually worth it to comply, because, otherwise getting caught by the tax man is too much of a cost. I mean, if the tax rate is low, then we might as well pay tax.
Also, it could have a multiplier effect in terms of increasing disposable income, pushing consumption,
Right.
pushing indirect taxes. So that is a trade-off. Do we
Absolutely.
want more people in paying higher taxes or more indirect taxes?
More indirect, and this is actually a key issue that Yutika has hit upon, because our direct taxes so far in this current financial year have done very well. The growth so far has been 25%, where at the beginning of the year the government had budgeted growth of just 10%, so it's outperformed. But on the other side, indirect taxes have not done that well. The budgeted target was a 10% growth, and so far the growth has been only about 5%. So that's a problem. More and more dependence on direct taxes. I mean, overall it's a good thing because direct taxes are progressive in nature, but still you don't want an imbalance. You want largely, 50-50 coming from direct taxes and indirect taxes. This is a sign of good health of the economy. So hopefully we can expect a tax break. Now, a lot of people seem to suggest, and a lot of actually experts, industry leaders seem to think that the budget can reduce GST rates. Let's make this point absolutely clear. The budget cannot change GST rates at all. GST rates are set by the GST Council, and this is a body that includes the center and all the states. And only when they agree and decide to change rates can it be changed. The budget is a document by only the central government, and the center cannot unilaterally change GST rates. Income tax rates, sure. Customs, excise, wealth tax, any of the other taxes under the center, it can change, but not GST. So, I mean, are there any other insights that you have?
So, going with the taxes only, industry has asked that corporate tax remains same.
Right.
Economists are also pitching that tax on super rich should either be reduced or at least not increased, because they say that it is around 40% now, including all surcharges and everything, and it is just too much. So, on the tax, these twos. Otherwise,
Is this because they fear that our high net worth individuals are fleeing the country, that they're leaving?
yes, they are parking funds elsewhere, again, which is a loss to
Yeah.
us. And also, it just doesn't make sense for them to pay 40% of their
Right.
income. I was talking to one economist, and he said that 1 month's income goes into tax per
Wow.
quarter.
Per quarter. Wow.
So that is, when you put it like that it seems a lot.
Right.
So other than that, I think the push is really everybody is looking for measures to boost consumption demand.
Yeah, that really is a
That is
big
really
issue.
a concern for
Yeah.
everybody, how to generate employment and how to push consumption demand.
Yes, I mean, since November, in fact, when the Q2 GDP numbers came out, and the data showed that consumption was like it was forming a smaller and smaller share of GDP. Since then, actually, a lot of people have begun raising the consumption alarm that things are not looking good. And there's all this talk, right, like that India is a consumption led economy, and that our consumers are the ones that drive growth. There is some truth to that, but I mean, of course, there are a lot of other things that also drive our growth, but consumption is an important part. And if that is slowing, it tells you a lot about what's happening in the economy. Why is consumption slowing? Is it because people are uncertain about the future? Is it that they're uncertain about their current incomes, that they don't know, that they aren't earning enough right now and so they don't want to spend? Or is it that they fear that they might lose their jobs in the near future? All of these things are important questions that the government needs to think about. And in the meantime, it needs to give the people some amount of security that no, even if your own incomes for some reason like stops, the government is going to help you in some way, whether it is in terms of PM Kisan or Narega or reduced income tax. There are various ways that the government can help out people. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, actually, we could explain every single economist, every single industry body, every single expert has pointed out that it is very critical that a balance between economic growth and fiscal consolidation
Right.
is maintained. We stick to 5.9 fiscal deficit, and for next year we target around 5.3. So you could maybe explain why is that
right.
important? And
So, right. So, I mean, this year, the fiscal deficit target for this current financial year was set at 5.9%. The government looks on track to either meet it or maybe miss it by 0.1%. Might be 6%. But the thing is that fiscal consolidation is important because one, it gives an indication to the world that we are a responsible policymaker, that when we set our targets, we go about meeting them. But it also has a bearing on the interest rates at which our government can borrow, because it affects our credit rating, and there are various factors. It's an important thing to be fiscally responsible, because the other option is to just go, start spending like crazy. The elections are coming. Let's just throw all our money in subsidies and ways to attract votes. But so far, this government has actually shown that it has been responsible. The fiscal deficit since the pandemic, since it rose to, I think, more than 9% or 8.6 or something like that. Since then, it's been coming down steadily. The government has shown that it's responsible. Every communication from the government has been that we're sticking to our targets. We are sticking to the glide path of bringing it down. So that's the thing. But on the other side, the economists have also been saying that growth needs, as I said, government spending is what is driving growth. So it shouldn't be that the government is trying to be too responsible by cutting its expenditure by too much, because that will make growth suffer. So a target from 5.9 this year to make it 5.3, 5.4 seems reasonable. But if it suddenly tries to target, say, 5.1 or a 5% fiscal deficit target, that might start hurting growth, which obviously is not a good thing. So, yeah.
yeah. So largely, this is it. I think we have covered all major.
Yeah, and I think now the finance minister would have left from North Block and would be heading to Parliament, and there'll be photos taken at the start. So on that note, do join us for our post-budget live show. It'll be me and Radhika Pandey, who's our long-time collaborator. She's associate professor at NIPFP. We will be bringing you the latest, the top 10 or top 5 key takeaways from the budget. So join us for, as soon as the budget speech ends, join us for our post-budget live. Thank you so much.
Thank you.